Hey guys, Marsha's kit has been revealed. She's gonna be the first character to be released in version 3.3 and she's gonna be our Afterglow sustain. So keep in mind that if you want to pull for her and for Beryl, you also will have to pull for Isolde, right? All of these three characters, they go together and they have to be played together in order to make them work. The first thing that you have to understand is that whenever an enemy is inflicted with burn or halo, you accumulate this afterglow meter. And afterglow characters cannot coexist with blood-type characters. Keep that in mind. Now we can move on to her insight. And her insight number 1. The phrasing here is a little bit complicated, but let me read all of this out first and then explain what is actually going on here. When Marsha enters battle, all allies gain a shield and all allies holding the shield have increased damage resistance. Gain the corresponding daylight prayers based on the number of Afterglow allies. At the start of the round you dispel all control effects on all allies, you grant all allies pardon, and you grant yourself field aid. Alright, now what does all of this mean? You gain a shield to all allies have damage resistance. Cool. Then, if you play her together, if you play Marsha together with Isolde and Beryl, then you will increase the maximum amount of burn stacks that you can apply to all enemies. So you apply burn more efficiently and more overall. At the start of the round, you increase all allies' critical damage based upon how much the Afterglow meter is filled. You will fill the Afterglow meter more thanks to applying more burn stacks, and this increases your critical damage. Cool. You also are completely immune to control effects, because at the start of every round you dispel all control effects on all allies, and you grant all allies pardon, which also means that you apply a buff to your allies, and whenever they would now be hit with a control effect, this control effect would not happen. It would be neutralized thanks to the buff called pardon. Do you grant this to all allies, and you grant yourself a field aid. Now what does field aid mean? It means that when any ally is attacked, Marsha consumes this field aid to cast her incantation number 2 for free. More onto what her incantation number 2 is in just a second. First, let's read off her insight number 3. That says that when a field aid is consumed, you gain yourself critical hit rate and critical resistance. At the start of the round you inflict all enemies with burn. When entering battle, or if one of Marsha's attack crits, or again when you consume a field aid, you increase your moxie. You can have moxie be overflowed. You can have more than 5 moxie, because the moxie will be stored temporarily. And if there's empty moxie capacity at the end of the round, it will then be refilled. So let me break all of this insight down one more time. You start the game off with a shield and with damage resistance. You will be able to stack burn more effectively now, because you can inflict more stacks of burn. And the more you feel the Afterglow meter via inflicting these stacks of burn, you increase all of your allies' critical damage. You will grant yourself something called field aid. It's a buff, and when now an ally is attacked, you cast your incantation number 2 for free. You inflict burn onto all of your enemies right out of the gate at the start of the round. And now, whenever you crit or you consume a field aid, you increase your moxie. So you don't have to actively play her, because you will increase your moxie passively, because you will use your incantation number 2 passively. You yourself can have an overflow of moxie that will be stored, and if you miss moxie at the end of the turn, this overflow of Moxie will be provided to you. So if you play it right, you can use your ultimate twice in a row. Keep in mind here that you will cast your incantation number 2 for free once per enemy turn. The enemies attack you. You consume the field aid that you get at the start of your round, and then you cast your incantation number 2. Okay, let's take a look at her incantations right now. Her incantation number 1, called Virtue of Restraint, says it's a one target attack. It deals reality damage. When the attack hits, you inflict burn onto the target. After the attack, you gain yourself critical hit rate and critical damage. When attacking a target whose burn stacks have reached a certain number of stacks, you will deal bonus damage. Okay, this is the incantation that you will use quite frequently, actively. Here's how it looks. Her incantation number 2, called Silent Burden, the one that you cast for free every single round, says it's a must buff and it grants all allies a shield. When you actively cast this though, you will still consume a field aid. This would further increase the amount of shield that you would gain, so you would gain more shield by casting this actively compared to casting this passively. Plus, if you cast this actively, you dispel all of your allies like negative status and stats down, so you dispel every single debuff from all of your team. That means that you would only ever cast this actively if you want to dispel all of your debuffs from your enemies. Otherwise, you will always just let this happen passively. Okay. Additionally, if the target already has a shield, the shield value is added to the existing shield and the shield duration is extended. All allies holding a shield have increased damage resistance. And here's how it looks. Cool. Now onto her ultimate. Here you will find out why we actually cast her incantation number 1 actively. Of course also to apply burn, but check her ultimate out now. What her ultimate says is, it is called Advice Offered to Violence. That's a pretty cool name if you ask me, but it's a mass attack. It grants yourself more critical hit rate and more critical damage. It deals reality damage to all enemies. And when the attack hits, you inflict the targets with burn. After the attack, you consume all of your critical hit rate and critical damage buffs to grant all of your allies another buff called Training. That Training buff does the following. The critical hit rate is increased, and when dealing damage, the overflow of critical hit rate is converted into critical damage. Now comes the important part. It increases incantation might and critical damage based on stacks. So you want to use your incantation number 1 as much as possible. You want to use this to accumulate yourself the Moxie, and you want to stack up upon the buff called Pain Compensation, which gives you critical hit rate and critical damage. You want to stack this buff up as much as possible before you use your ultimate, because your ultimate will then consume all of these stacks to turn them into incantation might and critical damage to your entire team. So stack this up as much as possible by using your incantation number 1 to then use your ultimate and grant your entire team incantation might. That is pretty important, very cool. Here's how our ultimate looks, by the way. And that's the character Marsha for you. She's the Afterglow sustain support, however you want to call it. Pretty easy to understand and pretty straightforward. You have to keep in mind though that you have to play this support actively, at least right out of the gate, because again, you have to use your incantation number 1 as many times as possible to stack up upon a buff, and once you stack up upon the buff as much as possible, you want to use your ultimate to grant your entire team incantation might mainly, but also critical damage. So there you go. It doesn't matter. We don't have to figure out how good this sustain character Marsha is, because it doesn't matter how good she is. She will be needed anyways, right? Again, if you pull for Beryl, then you have to pull for Isolde as well. We already figured that part out a while ago. Now Marsha joins the field, and if you pulled for Isolde and Beryl, you must pull for Marsha as well, because she's the only sustain who increases the afterglow meter, and Beryl and Isolde desperately need this afterglow meter to be increased more. Both of them together, they don't do it enough yet. So Marsha will come in and fill the void and fix this, let me say, issue, right? So doesn't matter how good Marsha is, you will have to pull for her anyways if you play Afterglow. If you don't play Afterglow, you won't pull for Marsha no matter how good she is. So yeah, there we go. That's Marsha's kit. I hope this video was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, don't forget to join the Discord server, link in the description down below, and we love this game.